This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob drops a steaming pile of knowledge. He upholds the Constitution, as we all should. And Tim is helping the bad guys now.
No.
And also hosting. Hi there. I'm your host,
Howdy.
Tim Farley. And this is Virtual Skeptics. Actually on the air for once.
I know, we're back.
It's an innovative new feature of the show, that we actually have a show.
Yeah, well, we have a random absence generator, and every so often they cluster.
Oh, is that what happens?
Yeah. So,
Well,
there were trips and there were diseases and all sorts of things.
Yeah, there was stuff going on. Yep. So, here we are. We are live on Wednesday, April 27th, so you can talk to us via the hashtag Virtual Skeptics on Twitter. I think the comments on YouTube should work, and the Q&A app should be working. I guess I should put it up over here on my management interface so I can see it. And so that's various ways. Try to save the Q&A app for actual Q's or A's. But random comments can go on Twitter and on YouTube. But let me introduce our panel. I'm getting way ahead of myself. First up, we've got Bob Blaskowitz, CSI's conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities, and a contributor to the Skepticality podcast. We have Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities and contributor to Skepticality and Insight at skeptic.com. And me, I am a blogger at SkepTools, or I was. We'll talk about that when we get to my segment. And Insight at skeptic.com, Skepticality contributor, creator of What's the Harm, and other various things. So I'm Tim Farley. So let's get on with the show. But before we get to our first topic, last time we had a show with a trivia question, which seems like many weeks ago. It was about one of those forms of divination. They're fascinating because there seems to be millions of them if you just look up forms of divination. But I ran across one in an unusual setting that's very young. It actually was created in the last 50 years. A form of divination. It's called tauromancy, and it involves a book, masks, essences, staves, and rods laid out on a mat on a table. And what makes tauromancy unique among forms of divination? And that's all I'm going to give you. But
I done tweeted it.
Be interesting, huh?
I done tweeted it.
Oh, okay. All right. So we will go on, and we will start this week with Bob.
Oh dear. Okay. So now this is a story that I've been sitting on for a couple of weeks now. It's a couple weeks old, but it's cool enough to pay attention to. God knows it's been waiting for not just 2 weeks, but several thousand years at this point. It has to do with a possible development in one of the unsolved mysteries of the ancient world and a formative moment in Western history. This is where Hannibal crossed the Alps. Hannibal Barca was a warrior basically made of myth. His freaking ridiculous harebrained scheme to march an army, including elephants, across the Alps is matched perhaps only by his harebrained idea to not march on Rome itself and finish the job. The Second Punic War against Phoenicia, that's what Punic means, in Italy began with Hannibal's crossing of the Alps in 218 BC. He then descended into the Po Valley ripped the Roman armies to shreds over and over. First at Trebia, then at Lake Trasimene, and then finally at Cannae, which was basically, that last one was basically the Somme, Verdun, and Passchendaele all at once for the Romans. Some statistics about what he did. Between 50 and 70,000 Romans were killed or captured, including a host of the most important political office holders, including a current consul, the highest official, 2 consuls of the previous year. Those are the ones that they'd send abroad to do more conquering and governing in the following year. 2 of 4 quaestors, 29 out of 48 military tribunes, and there were 6 tribunes per legion, and 80 senators out of 300 total, less than 300 total. So a third of the elite governing class of Rome was killed in this one battle. Hannibal is basically the boogeyman that Roman citizens told their kids about, if they wouldn't go to bed. And the Roman saying about impending doom, calling it Hannibal at the gates, well, it still echoes in our phrase enemy at the gates. So by the time the historian Polybius wrote the first extant history of Hannibal's invasion of Italy, some 60 years after the invasion, the route that he took into Italy through the Alps was already unknown, kind of. There was question, it was in contention. There are a couple of possible routes, and there have been some modern attempts to try to reconstruct the one that he used. And there are about 3 viable passes that most people think that he could have used. And scholars in several disciplines have attempted to match geographic details mentioned in the stories of the crossing in Polybius and in Livy, who wrote much later, but refers to earlier but lost texts by name, and other historians of the time to the passes in the Alps. A new paper came out entitled Biostratigraphic Evidence Related to It's a very hard, difficult paper to pronounce, which is perhaps why it's been a mystery for so long. No, biostratigraph, fucking piles of shit evidence relating to the age-old question of Hannibal's invasion of Italy. It appeared in the March edition of Archaeometry by W.C. Mahaney and others. Mahaney, if you go through the last 10 years of that journal, Archaeometry, he wrote 4 of the 6 articles about Hannibal to appear in it, and the other 2 were responses to him. So he's been doing this for a while, and his preferred route is the path that's below, if you could bring up the first image, the Col de la Traversette, the Traversette Hill or Peak, I guess. No, that's Hannibal. There's the route.
I don't know. Oh, I guess I pressed play. Sorry about that.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see that, but if you follow the arrow from the little north key, there's a little. It says Col de Traversette, and just above that is a dark line. That's the southernmost possible route, and that's the one that he favors. His previous work identifies a rockfall that was found, which may correspond to a rockfall mentioned in the Roman histories. However, if the histories are right, their method for clearing these huge rocks ahead of this army was to light fires and burst the rocks. But there's been no scoring found on any of these rocks, so who knows? The theory behind this current study goes as follows. Horses, of which there were many in this army, right, tend to crap when they drink water. I don't know if that's true. I did.
You should ask that pony that visited your campus.
I should give him a drink and see what happened. Right? No. But I looked into it. I mean, I did look a little bit, and all I found was like how much horses drink. That's all I could find. They didn't say, and also they crap. So what can you
They
do?
do, though.
Huh?
It's been scientifically proven that they do, in fact, crap.
Horses do crap?
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yep.
Appearing in next month's issue of Crapology. All right, so they were looking for a watering hole on the route, and then they went to dig cores looking for the crap of 7,000 horses around this watering hole. That's a lot of manure. And they identified what they thought was a promising site, a boggy area, a peat mire, in 2011. And so this is like research that's being published from work that was done in 2011. And so they did 2 cores recovered from the mire in 2011. The cores provided radiocarbon ages along with preliminary stratigraphic and geochemical data. That, in turn, led to the excavation of an adjacent trench to a depth of about 75 centimeters in 2013. And you can look at this core and identify a couple of different layers that have to do with different periods of history. One of them, subsection 3, extends from 38 to 50 centimeters down, and near the top, at 42 centimeters, the density of that material drops to its lowest level in the core, with the exception of unpacked surface debris and dirt. At the same time, the organic content rises to its highest level below the surface values, and the sediment changes color. They say that this interval, quote, consists of an open structure of loosely matted organic fragments mixed with finer decomposed materials, suggesting that it has been mixed or churned, something they call bioturbated. This churning is rarely, if ever, seen in bog cores elsewhere in alpine or other areas, end quote. So what they find is this layer of churned ground with a spike in cyperaceae pollen, which they say, quote, may be indicative of the passage of large numbers of grazing animals. The beds also contain strong fecal biosignatures and presence of bacteria from mammals, that is to say Clostridium. The carbon dating, they say, puts it really close to the right time. And the authors argue that because of the elevation, normal human passage through that route and the commerce of the area just can't account for the sheer amount of crap up there. So they're looking at a mass deposit. This is promising evidence, not inconsistent with the passage of an army. So it's a possibility.
What do you mean by very nearly the right time period?
They put it right smack dab over it.
Okay.
So I mean, it's right around there.
You get big error bars on carbon dating, so
yeah,
you can never
I
really.
realize that.
There was some. They took something into account. They did some sort of additional analysis that narrowed it really spectacularly.
Right. Okay.
So it was a. It seems to be about the right time. But still, it is just kind of evidence of just a bunch of crap there.
It could be poodles, for instance.
Well, the Great Poodle Migration of 212
Yeah.
is not much spoken of in the histories because it didn't happen. Okay, so this is what I think is that this is interesting as preliminary information.
Sure.
It's not conclusive evidence of the Army's passage through the southernmost route. Honestly, I'd like to see comparisons to pollen counts and fecal remains in other potential routes at about the same time. Well, I wouldn't like to see them. I'd like to hear about them. And I think they're going to be doing that. I'd like to see evidence of something specific to elephants, for instance. Maybe a parasite or something. That may be wishful thinking because it's been so long. However, they do say that some of these spores of the Clostridium can survive for thousands of years. So, remarkably stable little buggers.
Mm-hmm.
Most of all, what this paper is a justification, in my opinion, for a much more intensive conventional search. And this is the main problem I have. This is a really interesting find, not corroborated by much other physical evidence. What you would expect from the passage of an army, an enormous moving city, would be all sorts of debris, pottery, and belt buckles, or nails, and actually bodies.
Elephant bones.
Well, yeah, you would, because half of the army died in the mountains, right? It was you'd expect there to be, maybe down the crevices, the remains of people who fell off. By all accounts, it was a slippery descent, and we suspect that some people kind of went over the side. According to Polybius, of the 38,000 infantry, there were 38,000 infantry, 8,000 cavalry, and 38 elephants on the north side of the Alps, and then 20,000 soldiers, 4,000 horsemen, and only a few elephants on the other side of the Alps. So there should be a lot to find up there. Up to half an army is strewn around the Alps. I think that we can expect that we'd be able to find some camps or something. And in the last lines, they say this is what the authors encourage. So they're going about this the right way, I think. I mean, they're saying that this is good preliminary data. This seems like it might be direct evidence, but you really have to find traditional archaeological finds in context in order to interpret them. I think you could send drones down into the crevices looking for these things now. But I'd have to get funding.
That woman who does the space archaeology.
Sparkeology?
The sparkeology. She could find elephant dung or something.
No, so it's a cool study, and it is one of these long-standing debates that is never resolved.
Yep.
This guy seems to be pretty focused on this one topic. I'm not sure what other stuff he does, but this is his damn thing. And I know that they do. I've heard stories of you get a group of graduate students in ancient studies, and you cross the Alps and try to find stuff. But that's never quite panned out like that. So they really do need to do a proper excavation of the site. Yeah.
Cool.
I thought it was nifty for a story about poop.
Yep. Well, poop is one of those things that comes up a lot in archaeology.
It's true.
All right, so I changed up the order a little bit to put myself last. So Eve is next. She's going to talk about the Constitution.
And also crap.
Nice.
Yeah. Zach Coplin has written extensively about ways some public schools have tried to sneak creationism into the classroom despite the decision in Kitzmiller versus the Dover Area School District.
What's their problem?
Yeah.
What's their frickin' problem? Jerks.
Yeah. Well, in a Slate article this week, he talks about another way to skirt the Constitution. Field trips to the Creation Museum.
Woohoo!
Yay! So the first slide, if you could bring that up, it's a little hard to see, but this is the announcements page of Brookville High School in Brookville, Ohio. You can see there the Blue Devils. And this is as it appeared on April 22nd. And it's very difficult to see, but the highlighted announcement at the very bottom of the page says, any student interested in going to the Creation Museum on April 30th, see Pete in the shop. And as of, I don't have pictures of this, but as of April 25th, Jackson Independent School District in Kentucky had 16 photos on its website labeled Historical Field Trip. Mr. Couch's 7th grade history class visited the Creation Museum.
To point and laugh?
No, it did not look like they were doing that. And according to the minutes of the Beaver Falls Area School District in Pennsylvania, yeah, I know, Josh Maruka, who appears to be a math teacher and golf coach, is requesting permission to take 20 high school students to the Creation Museum in Petersburg, Kentucky on Friday, May 20th, 2016, at no cost to the school district. According to Copland, this request was approved. And, stupid thing. Then, in April, not in April, but in 2012, and this is a while ago, but it's gotten a lot of attention recently, students at Southside Elementary School in Lee County, Kentucky, were taken to the Creation Museum as a reward for perfect attendance. By the way, perfect attendance also includes one absence. That event was arranged by Lee County School Board Chairman William Owens, who is also pastor at the Bear Track Bible Church of Beattyville, Kentucky.
Bear Track?
Yes.
That's a weird name for a church.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's Weird Church. Now, Copland's focus in the article is Ken Ham and the Creation Museum, but Ham and the Creation Museum are probably not doing anything unconstitutional themselves. They're just doing business, although they do offer discounts to school groups, including public school groups. The schools, on the other hand, seem to be in murky territory. The Creation Museum is overtly religious. It's part of a ministry. It's not just about the bad science. It's also about emphasizing the primacy of the Bible and instilling moral religious values. Excuse me a minute.
Eve is going to be coughing up her lung. Oh, that was a good one. There was a little glop in that one.
Sorry, getting over a cold.
Me too.
Yeah, and an officially sanctioned trip to an overtly proselytizing religious seems to be problematic.
Suckfest. The word is suckfest.
Okay. Yeah, that seems about right. Mm-hmm. So these schools and school districts have been quite open about these trips. They're right on their websites, or they were at least until recently. So how many more schools are being more circumspect but actually still sending kids to the Creation Museum? In March, Copland attended one of Ham's vision conferences at Covington's First Baptist Church in Louisiana. When Copland asked Ham, whom he calls the Ayatollah of Appalachia, which I enjoy very much. It's mellifluous.
It is.
But when he asked him about his education initiatives, Ham said, "We don't get involved in politics, and we've never tried to get education taught or to get creation taught in school." No, it's true that they've never tried to get education taught in school. But what he said was they've never tried to get creation taught in school. And this seems just, I'm going to say it, a teeny-weeny bit disingenuous. As Ham rails against secular education, particularly the teaching of the Big Bang Theory and the theory of evolution by natural selection, which, as far as I know, he can't tell apart.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts how Big Bang and evolution get put right next to each other whenever those guys talk about it, and they have nothing to do with each other.
I know. Yeah. At the conference Copland attended, Ham said, "If you believe in the Earth being millions, that's millions with an M, of years old, as a Christian, you believe God says brain tumors and cancer are good, because non sequitur."
Okay.
I have no idea what that's actually.
What was the argument there?
I have no idea. But that's just how bad the teaching of creation and Big Bang Theory are. According to Kaplan, Ham credited evolution education with everything from transgender rights and the end of traditional marriage to the idea that humans are animals.
Because people can't get married anymore. Have you noticed? No one can get married. Only gay married.
Absolutely. First, except for maybe the last bit, that doesn't make sense. Second, yay? Go evolution? I don't know. Ham's also said in the past, specifically in the response to the claim that it's unconstitutional for public schools to take students to the Creation Museum, that that's not true. He cited on Facebook a 1987 Supreme Court case, which he didn't name, rather than Kitzmiller, because he could make the 1987 decision say what he wanted it to say. Whereas Kitzmiller is more of a problem.
Pretty unambiguous.
Yeah. He also claimed that there's no such thing as separation of church and state because those actual words are not in the First Amendment. And he's quite condescending and mocking about people who don't understand this, according to him.
So, like, Time Cube guy.
Yes.
Sure. That would explain a great many things if he was the same.
You do not understand creation. He says the purpose of the Establishment Clause is to protect freedom of religion, which it is, but he wants it to be the only purpose. Unfortunately for him, there's centuries worth of constitutional case law and decisions that don't actually agree with him.
Yep.
Ham and Answers in Genesis have also fairly explicitly encouraged stealth missionary work in public schools, as in this cartoon. If you bring up the next slide.
Huh.
Boy, this thing is cranky today. Oh, there it is.
There it is. So the little boy says to the little girl something about, my teacher told me that there's someone who's a Christian missionary who's changing the lives of children in increasingly hostile to the gospel. And then it's my teacher. And then it says pray for the public school missionaries. So again, pretty explicitly encouraging stealth proselytizing in schools. So again, he might be just an itsy bitsy bit full of what was that stuff that they found on in the
7,000 horses worth of shit.
Yeah, that's it.
Do we need to drill some cores through Ken Ham?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Oh my God.
And
carbon dated 6,000 years old. Damn the thing.
And although this has nothing to do with the Constitution, Ham also clearly doesn't have a problem with the separation of church and commerce, or possibly does have a problem with the separation of church and commerce. He's made a tidy little fortune out of the Creation Museum, Answers in Genesis, and the soon-to-be-open Ark Encounter. Kaplan mentions all the merchandise for sale at Ham's Vision Conference at the Baptist Church. The crowd flooded out to buy textbooks from a row of tables that stretched around the entire lobby, a few hundred feet of curriculum materials. Now, I kind of wish that I did believe in Jesus, because I'd really like to see him turn up at one of Ham's dues and overturn the tables and start shouting, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of robbers. Because I think that would be hilarious and appropriate. And that's it.
It's weird. These traveling mountebank preachers with their, you remember going to the Brandon House thing in Atlanta when he was there, and they had all that teaching material in the out in the hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
all those. Yeah.
Yeah.
All that's
where the money is, baby.
Yeah, and they all had their CDs and their books and their. Yeah. Plus, there's the bookshop at the Creation Museum is huge.
And
And they
hopping.
sell and they sell all sorts of things, and they are selling things that are supposed to be education materials, along with like stuffed dinosaurs and dragons. And poor Beowulf is standing over the door.
Yeah. That came from someone's fevered dream, I'm afraid. It's just so weird. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So.
So are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Awkward pause.
I was responding to a question. Alex thought our feed had died, and I was just checking.
Yeah.
And we're still seem to be going. Yep. Okay, so I guess it's my turn. So now it is my chance to announce that I am... Well, wait a second. Wait. Before we go on, Alex had a suggestion in the Q&A, and he suggested that if a bunch of skeptics, or he asked, if a bunch of skeptics showed up at the school visit to the Creation Museum and cheered, "Go Devils!" Would that be appropriate?
That would be awesome.
It would be appropriate if you were from a school where the mascot was the Blue Devils, which is a mascot at a number of schools, because it's Tulane. Is it Tulane? Are the Blue Devils? Or somebody's the Blue Devils. Duke Blue Devils? Somebody's the Blue Devils.
Is Loyola?
Anyway, yeah, it would be interesting to go there. Anyway, that was a good comment. So now it's my turn to announce that I am becoming evil.
Oh, well.
So I've gone over to the dark side, and I am going to use my segment to help the bad guys, and specifically in relation to Wikipedia. And the reason is there have been several recent incidents involving folks who hate skeptics and Wikipedia, and they've embarrassed themselves, and I'm tired of it, and I want to help them. So the first one was, I am a giver. And I have talked about before how Deepak Chopra has embarrassed himself over Wikipedia, and it turns out that an employee...
To be fair, not just over Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, he's embarrassed himself on a lot of things, but he seems like a lot of people to be obsessed with how he is perceived on Wikipedia, which I understand. Your Wikipedia, if you have a Wikipedia article, it's often the very first result for your name in Google, so people can't avoid it. And if it says bad things about you, then it's going to hurt your feelings. Well, you know, sometimes there are bad things to say about it. And quite frankly, Wikipedia has very strict rules about how those bad things get into the article. Anyway, I'm getting off a tangent. But anyway, what happened recently was, and I won't go into all the details, but on this show and in a blog post, I have documented how Deepak Chopra had a 15-year employee basically writing his biography for him on Wikipedia for years, and the person did not realize that that was a conflict of interest. And he got outed and banned from, well, he didn't get banned, but he basically voluntarily said, okay, I won't edit Deepak's article anymore. So that was number one. The second one was the guy who runs that stupid Wikipedia's terrible website that constantly tries to troll me. He got banned because basically he was trolling various people on Wikipedia over the Rupert Sheldrake article. He admitted on his own talk page that he wasn't there to edit Wikipedia, that he was there doing an experiment in how people were interacting with each other, and got himself banned and got several sock puppets banned. And he ended up being an employee of Deepak Chopra a little bit later. And he's banned from Wikipedia. And it turns out one of his cohorts, who he's involved in his anti-Wikipedia blog, who is also an employee of Deepak Chopra at the Ishar Project, which is their project to it's sort of an ill-thought-out project where basically they were going to collect all the peer-reviewed papers that woo-woos write in one place in a giant database and make it look cool, so that somehow magically Wikipedia would suddenly think those papers were good sources to use in articles. I guess. I never understood the logic behind it. And they ran a very sort of ill-fated Kickstarter that I don't think ever got the amount of money it was supposed to get. And they hired a couple people to set the thing up. And I guess it's still out there, but I've never seen much activity to it. And it certainly isn't affecting Wikipedia in any good way. But anyway, the guy who was hired to run that was one of the cohorts of the Wikipedia troll guy, and he recently got banned because somebody pointed out that he was an employee of Deepak Chopra's, and he got topic banned. He's still allowed to edit Wikipedia, but he's not allowed to edit Deepak Chopra's article or anything related to Deepak Chopra. So that's 3 employees of Deepak Chopra that have been banned off of Wikipedia because of their misbehavior and not following the rules. And one of the things that many of them do is get obsessed with what other editors are doing. They accuse Susan Gerbic of things. And then more recently, a whole thing has started up because of the article about the movie Vaxxed. And here's a screenshot of that article. And because it's in the news, of course, someone created an article about it, and it's got the movie poster, and it's got details about what the reaction to. And don't pay any attention to the arrows right now, but I'll talk about those in a second. But there's an article on there, and of course, the folks who are anti-vaccine and pro-Wakefield, Vaxxed, of course, is Wakefield's movie that got invited to and then uninvited from the Tribeca Film Festival, and it's been shown at other film festivals since. And it's the whole CDC whistleblower thing. Basically, it's just a big steaming pile of baloney that needs a core drilled through it, too. But anyway, Mike Adams, our old friend, went off on a rant that because David Gorski is referenced, David Gorski wrote about this movie a couple times, so some of the editors on Wikipedia used David Gorski's blog posts, particularly on science-based medicine, as references to this article about the scientific reception of the material in the movie.
Because
right?
he's
the Lord High Wikipedian.
Huh?
Gorski's the Lord High Wikipedian.
Well, that's what Mike Adams claims. Mike Adams claims, based on I don't know what, Mike Adams' fever dreams, that Gorski wrote this article entirely by himself. Okay?
In one night, because it's David Gorski.
And that's why all those references to Gorski's blog are in there. Right? Now, Gorski, I spent a lot of time on Wikipedia. Gorski does not edit Wikipedia. Gorski is a very busy surgeon, scientist. He's got grants to write. He edits the stuff on science-based medicine. He's got breast cancer surgeries to go do, people's lives to
save. Babies don't cook themselves. Someone has to do that.
Right. So he does not have time to be fucking around on Wikipedia, pardon my French. But what I wanted to do, I've decided I'm going to go help these guys. Okay, Mike Adams, Deepak Chopra, I'm here to help you. Okay, guys, here's what you need to do. When you want to
Mike, if you're watching, I hope you fall downstairs. That's all.
Okay. Here's the thing, Mike. When you want to find out who wrote an article, it's very simple, okay? It's right there at the top of the article. If you look at where that left arrow is pointing, it points to the words View History, okay? If you click that link, it will show you the entire history of this article, which in this case, this article, of course, the movie just came out, so this article is not that old. It's only a few weeks old. It has less than 500 edits on this article. You can see the entire history. You can look at the article at every single point and see what it looked like at all 400 and whatever spots, and see how it changed over time. And you can get a list of the usernames of everyone who edited this article. Okay? Not only that, but if you wanted to if you were interested in the behavior and activities of a particular editor, if you're logged into Wikipedia, there's a link in the upper right. You can see my nickname Krelnick up there in the top center, but in the upper right, the other arrow points to a link that says contributions. And if you click that, it will show a similar history of just your stuff, what you put into Wikipedia. Okay? In my case, if I click it, it shows what I put into Wikipedia. And when you do that, you see a URL with your name in it. It would, in my case, it would say Krelnick. It's very simple. If you want to see what other people on Wikipedia are doing, just go up and edit the URL where it says Mike Adams or whatever you decide your username is going to be. Change it to the username of the other user, and then you can look at everything they're doing on Wikipedia, and you can see the exact details. So you don't have to accuse random people of doing things. The interesting thing about it is that Mike thought he would be an investigator, and he would out David Gorski and say that David Gorski was editing under another name, which, by the way, is against Wikipedia rules, outing someone who's using a pseudonym. So if Mike Adams were to create an account, he would get himself banned if he had done that correctly. But he decided, for some reason, that the person who was Gorski, here's what an edit history looks like, by the way. This is the history of Vaxxed, and as you can see, you don't see Gorski there, and you can scroll down and you wouldn't see Gorski. But he actually accused a different editor of editing Vaxxed, and it was an editor by the name of Mastcell, which you see in the center of this box. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, for Woo Tools tonight, is I'm going to demonstrate how you could investigate whether or not Mastcell had actually made any edits on Wikipedia. Because, yeah, I know, scrolling a window is hard. It's hard pressing page down 20 or 30 times and searching for the word Mastcell on the screen. So let's do it a little easier way, right? There is actually a tool, and here's the URL of it. It's called, there's a thing called WMF Labs. It stands for Wikimedia something Labs, but basically it's all the interesting science projects that they're doing at Wikipedia and Wikimedia. And there's all these tools over there that will give you sliced and diced data a million different ways pulled out of Wikipedia. And if you go to this one called XTools pCount, and you get a box like this, and you say, okay, I want to see what Mastcell has been doing on en.wikipedia.org, which is the English Wikipedia, which I think is the only one that has a Vaxxed article right now. You punch that in, and you get a bewildering array of charts. Now, you're going to have to scroll again. I know it's really hard to press that page down button.
Hard.
But you can do it. You can do it. And you can get this history, and you can see, for instance,
Steve, will you scroll for me?
That in these charts that Mastcell actually used to be a hell of a lot more active back in 2007, 2008, 2009, and has actually tailed off recently. Now, I will tell you, I have seen Mastcell, whoever that is. I have no idea who Mastcell is. He's obviously been around since 2006, which is way longer than me. So he's an experienced editor. He's had 40-something thousand edits, which is not on this screen, but it would have been elsewhere on that chart. And if you keep scrolling down, Mike, keep scrolling down, you get down to the bottom, you can get a list of the top articles that Mastcell has edited. And these are just the top 20. And as you can see, there are some skeptic topics there. There's Matthias Rath, who was a notable quack from Germany, and Christine Magyar, who was a famous AIDS denialist. And there's HIV/AIDS denialism right at the top of the list. And if you click that more, you could see the entire list of every article that Mastcell has ever edited. And guess what? Vaxxed is not in the list, Mike. You embarrassed yourself by accusing Gorski of being Mastcell because simply by clicking and scrolling, any idiot could look at Vax and see that what you said was incorrect.
Well, to be fair, Mike Adams isn't just any idiot.
I was going to say
that's
the
true.
same thing.
He
He's a
is an Olympic
special
class
idiot.
yo-yo, as George Carlin once said. That's my session of Woo Tools. I just want to help Deepak and Mike Adams when you're going out there and accusing people of doing things on Wikipedia. There are easy ways to find out what people are actually doing. Okay, and people are doing a lot of stuff, and if you go dig in there, I'm sure you could find things that you could yell at me about and say, hey Tim, you shouldn't have made this edit to this article about whatever. Actual things that people have actually done. What an innovative idea. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight.
My God, Mike Adams is a disaster. Just a moral disaster as a thinker, as a everything. The guy is walking poison. It's just so funny and
that somebody wants to be known as this, muckraker or investigative journalist or whatever he wants to be known as, and then he publishes this fact that is trivially debunked.
Yeah.
Literally just by following a link and clicking a couple of times and scrolling, you could see that fact was wrong.
He's been going after Gorski pretty aggressively the last couple of days.
Yeah.
That wasn't the only thing that they wrote, but he's a horrible fucking person.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's
I spend all day not telling him exactly what I think about him on Twitter.
But at least he's also extraordinarily dim.
Yeah, he's not a clever guy.
I mean, he's vile and horrible. Because he does really just like calling people Nazis.
Yeah.
But basically. Also stunningly dim.
Well, it turns out that it doesn't take a lot of super smarts to be an internet marketing
He doesn't have that for sure.
And that's what he was. He was an internet, if you look at his history, he was an internet marketing guy, and he decided to specialize on natural remedies.
He should know this then.
He's not... he's kind of similar to Dana Ullman in that he's not really trained in any way or qualified in any way to talk about any of this stuff. He just knows how to use the online technologies to get people's attention.
But not to find out who wrote an article on Wikipedia.
It's so frustrating. People write these giant, voluminous articles about how skeptics are doing these horrible things on Wikipedia, and it's like, could you show me one fact? Click, look. I'm sure if you looked in my edit history, you could find something that you could yell at me about and say, hey, Tim, this was wrong. I guarantee you there's probably something. But look! Actually, go look!
Well, I mean, when it comes to Adams, he doesn't have any interest in good evidence, I mean, his bread and butter is anger, and he's gotten darker, I think.
Oh yeah,
in the last couple of years. I think he's going down a road that's going to get him in trouble.
Yeah, he didn't used to. I remember when I first encountered him, and I noticed like one of the things that he does, which is a classic internet marketing technique, is he has hundreds of different websites, and they're all interlinked with each other in weird ways. And that came out of the old SEO stuff, but it's also an interesting way to pull people in different ways into your web of stuff. And I remember when I was first researching Skeptic stuff, and I found some of his websites, and it's like, wow, this guy's got a ton of stuff. But it was all like natural, this herb or this vitamin and stuff like that. And now, you don't have to go like, 2 articles, and he's talking about this conspiracy theory or that conspiracy theory or death threats or, it's very weird. And there was that whole time where he would basically implied online that he was living in Ecuador because he feared for his life or something. But which I guess was bullshit. I don't know.
He's in Austin.
That's what I heard, is that he lives in Austin now. So I guess he doesn't feel
Is that Austin, Ecuador, or
yeah, Austin?
I don't know.
The one in Texas?
The one in
Yeah, I don't know. But learn how to collect on Wikipedia, Mike. Please, please. And then when you accuse people of things, at least you can accuse them of things that have actually happened.
Yeah.
Okay. We didn't have a ton of guesses on the trivia question, but Alex Murdoch came up with a pretty good answer. And he picked up, if you looked at the, we tweeted the question, or Bob tweeted the question, and I retweeted it, Tauromancy, Tauro, if you remember is that Greek or Roman? Greek or Latin?
That would be Roman, Latin.
Your Latin roots, Tauro is from bull, and Alex guessed that it was the art of bullshitting. And in fact, that's what it is. It is a completely fake version of divination invented by the Australian skeptic named Lynn Kelly, who, coincidentally, the reason I thought of this to have it as a trivia question is she somewhat recently was given a very nice Wikipedia article. And she invented it as a way to demonstrate cold reading. So that she could do something that looked legit and then reveal at the end of the reading that, yeah, this is all shit that I made up. I wasn't doing anything that you couldn't learn how to do. And I don't know anything. I'm not psychic at all. So the art of bullshitting, Tauromancy. And do we have any announcements?
I don't think so.
We're going to Balticon in a few weeks.
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be... Eve, what's your topic?
Viking women, and whether they existed or not.
On the moon?
No, just in Europe, mostly.
Oh, okay. Cool. So you're talking on the NCAS skeptic track thingy? Mm. Cool. Yeah, I heard they moved it to a new hotel after many years.
We wouldn't know. We've never been.
Well, no, we would know because we looked at the website and it says they're at a new hotel.
Yeah.
And when I say we,
that's right. This is the first year you guys have lived close to it.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. For many years it was at a hotel out in the suburbs, and now I think it's more like downtownish.
Yeah. At
a bigger hotel, because this is like their, what is it? The 40th, 50th? It's some anniversary year. Anyway, cool.
And so it's us and George R.R. Martin.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Balticon is great. A lot of great skeptic folks often show up there. George Rabb often goes because it's kind of local to him, and other folks are often seen there. I've been once, and it was great fun, had by all. If you've been to Dragon Con, it's much the same thing, but at a much smaller, more human scale.
Yeah.
It doesn't drive you insane. Dragon Con is just absurdly large. Balticon's a lot more manageable and nice. And speaking of events, there are a couple of other events coming up. I'll briefly mention Nexus, of course, is in New York City, coming up in May. You've probably been inundated with stuff about that on George's podcast and on the SGU, and da-da-da-da. They got a million great speakers, and George Rabb is performing his string quartet thing, and a bunch of other good stuff. But Skeptical is also coming up in Oakland, California. That's the Bay Area Skeptics annual event, and they have been doing that, and they don't get as much attention as Nexus, because I guess they don't have a podcast right there that promotes them, but it's a great little one-day event, and they are coming up, and let me make sure I get the Con 2016, Skeptic CalCon. It's on the 15th of May. And they've got Steve Silberman, Indre Viscontis, Carolyn Porco, Frank Mosher, Deborah Berliner, Jeff Shee, bunch of cool science speakers, and all the skeptic folks will be there. So that's a great event. I will be at none of those events, but I will be out in Boulder on Memorial Day weekend while you guys are at Balticon, running in a race with some skeptics.
Running skeptically.
Running skeptically with some folks like Reed Esau of Skeptic Camp and our friend Joe Anderson. So that's all coming up in May. And I guess we are now at book time.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody got a book?
I got one.
Okay, Bob, you go.
To contradict the advertising promises of privacy, the Post Office Department later revealed a letter written by Interstate to a Chicago broker handling sucker lists. The company had 70 to 80,000 letters from weak men inquirers. The letter said, quote, "The choicest lot of nervous debility names to be had in the country and have never been copied by anyone. If Interstate could get something close to a proper price, it would sell it or rent it."
Eve?
The cat appears as a familiar in the first of the really notable Elizabethan witch trials at Chelmsford in 1566. It was a white-spotted creature named Satan, which sucked blood. It took the form of a toad and caused the death of a man who touched it, and it helped its mistress to an unsatisfactory husband. But in view of all the evidence, I do not think the cat swam the channel in 1558 or came over on Bishop Jewell's shoulder in 1559. In fact, I know it did not. Elizabeth Frances received the cat from her grandmother, kept it for 15 or 16 years, and then presented it to Mother Waterhouse, who had cherished it more than 9 years when brought to trial. This carries the demon back well into King Henry's day, even if we ignore the period when he was in the service of the Francis woman's grand dam.
Ah.
I have no idea what that is, Eve.
Windows applications are message-driven. A message-driven system is one in which applications take action based on a message sent to a message queue. In Microsoft Windows, moving the cursor, displaying a typed character, drawing a window, etc., are all done as a result of messages sent from the operating system to the application. The application decides which messages are required for it to operate and takes actions on these messages. If the message in the queue is not one the application is watching for, then the application must pass the message on. Bob, what was your book?
My book is The Medical Messiahs, A Social History of Health Quackery in 20th Century America by James Harvey Young, library-bound copy because I got it from the library.
Nice. That sounds like a very interesting book.
He's the historian of American quackery.
Eve?
Witchcraft in Old and New England by George Lyman Kittredge.
Ooh. It's got 3 names, so you know it's good. Mine was Windows Development on NetWare Systems, one of the many obsolete programming books that I will be throwing out soon when we clean out my office to make some room here.
For new, future obsolete.
Yes. For new books that we'll throw away in 10 years.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we're done. I don't see any pending questions. So let's get out of Dodge and dance. What do you say,
Cool.
you?
I'm down with that.
The Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of What'sTheHarm.net, Skeptical Humanities, Brian Gregory, who's not here, ICBS Everywhere, and Doubtful News. Our logo was designed by Sarah Mayhew at sarahmayhew.com. Our theme music is by Musicant and is used with permission.